Well, back with another cEDH video for you guys. Today I'm going to talk about a deck I've been playing and trying to tweak for a while now. This is my ROG Tymna list. It's pretty different from most ROG Tymna lists. If you've watched my gameplay on Go to Combat or Praetors of Spice, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, I'll talk you through it today. So as the description says, this is a deck that can go fast and turbo out very quick wins, or it can accumulate a bunch of value by leaning into the Tymna plan and presenting protected wins a little bit later on. The commanders, I'm sure both of you guys know what they are. Rogok is a 0-drop 0-1 that gets sacrificed for the most part. It does enable some fast gameplay other than just being sacrificed by turning on different kinds of spells that we will talk about. And Tymna, of course, draws you cards after combat, depending on how many players you hit. So, pretty straightforward on what the commanders do, but we'll kind of talk through different plans. There's a lot of people that lean into Bolus's Citadel and other options like Enduring Renewal, which are in my considering for everybody to see. When you go to look at the deck tech, you can kind of see if there's other things you would like. But mine is not on any of that. So we'll kind of talk about what my list is doing. And I'll kind of run through each creature pretty fast and give you my reasoning for it existing in the deck. So, the main thing I should focus on first is telling you guys what the main goal of this deck is. The main goal of this deck is Ariok Salvagers. It's 3 colorless, 1 white, human soldier. It's a 2/4 that you could pay a colorless and a white to return an artifact with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to your hand. This is a very old combo that combos with Lion's Eye Diamond, where you're able to crack Lion's Eye Diamond, create 3 white mana, to then use 2 of it to return Lion's Eye Diamond to your hand. You are then able to loop this infinitely, creating infinite mana and infinite storm, everything like that. But the big thing we're going to be doing with that is using Arbaz Mir, which is red and a white, human assassin. It's a 2/2 that says whenever it or another non-token historic permanent enters the battlefield under your control, Arbaz Mir deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. So as you're looping the Bomberman combo, you're also draining your opponents out. Archivist of Ogma, when opponents search, we draw cards. You guys know what that does. Burgi is going to create you a red mana every time that you cast a spell. It helps with boasting, which no one ever does. And the backside of it could be discard a card, exile the top 2. I never really use the backside in this deck, to be honest, but it definitely is something you should keep your eye on. It's not hard to see that we create a bunch of mana in this deck, so we could easily convert that mana into a win with the backside of Burgi. Blood Pet, it's a newer thing that I'm testing out in the deck, but you can sack it to create a black. Downey, absolute unit in Tymna decks, and in general for farming decks and different things like that. But it is 2 colorless, 1 white, human scout, 2/2. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures of power 3 or greater. So it's going to make some of our creatures able to get in for damage. But most importantly, if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, it triggers an additional time. So if we're able to hit 3 opponents with Tymna on the battlefield, there's going to be 6 Tymna triggers altogether. But as you'll see, Arbaz Mir, power 2 or less, so that's going to double trigger. Archivist of Ogma is a 2, so that's going to double trigger. There's more that we'll get to as you'll see, but having the ability to double up on a lot of triggers is incredibly, incredibly powerful. DRC, Dragon Rage Channeler, cast non-creature spells, surveil 1. This is going to help us fill our graveyard for when we go for Underworld Breach combos, and it'll also help us filter out the top deck to get some of the cards we're not looking for out of the way. Dualcaster Mage, it's a combo piece with Molten Duplication, but it's also a piece that you can use to just copy an instant or sorcery. So important to keep your eye out on that. I guess it does trigger twice with Downey, which I've never really thought about, but it does. Speaking of things that double with Downy, Esper Sentinel. Everybody knows what that does. Flame Scroll Celebrant, which is a very, very good front side faced card that no one uses because actually the back is Revel in Silence. 2 white, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of planeswalkers this turn. That's all it is, just another silence effect. Grand Abolisher is a silence effect. Hope of Girper, kind of an interesting one. It's a 1 colorless legendary artifact creature, Thopter. It's a 1/1 flyer that you can sacrifice it until your next turn. That player who is combat damaged by Hope of Girper this turn can't cast non-creature spells. So it's a good way to like silence a player out, which is very nice. Lotho, you lose life and create a treasure when when a player casts their second spell, gets doubled by Downy. Loyal Apprentice, an absolutely amazing card. If you're playing Tymna with any kind of red, this card cannot be underappreciated, or it is underappreciated. It can't be undersold. You know what I mean. So basically, if you're able to get this down fast and you have Rog out, which is both things that you want to be doing in the deck anyway, then you're going to create a 1/1 Thopter at the beginning of each combat. The Thopter is also going to have haste, which is very nice because if you're able to get this down turn 2 and then Tymna down turn 3, you have 3 attackers on turn 2 to be able to hit, which is amazing. Plus, a lot of what this deck wants to do is present fast wins or explosive wins, and a lot of times that involves using Diabolic Intent, Infernal Plunge, Calling the Weak, Phyrexian Tower. So having more bodies on the battlefield definitely helps with that. Mayhem Devil, it's a 3-mana creature that says whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, you could deal 1 damage to any target. This works with the Salvager's Loop and also some different little loops that you can do. There's also just the chance that it's good enough to ping down the board and help control pieces. It also can just be good enough on its own to destroy the table. So, just a good all-around creature. Bowmasters, we all know what it does. Papalimo, it's similar to Arbozmir, but a little bit different. It's 1 white, 1 black, dwarf wizard. It's a 1/2. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Papalimo deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. So again, another way to loop with the Bomberman combo. It also has pay 4, tap it, sacrifice it. Each opponent who lost life this turn sacrifices a creature with the greatest power amongst creatures they control. I've never used the ability, but if you're playing against, an Ob Nixilis and some other big creatures that are on the battlefield, like an Atali maybe, and you're worried about it, paying 4 mana to be able to make them sacrifice those creatures is incredibly strong. And all you have to do is cast a mana rock or anything to be able to trigger it so that everybody loses life. Professional Facebreaker, we all know what it does. Ragavan, we know. Sarah Ascendant, 1 white, basically a 6/6, because as long as you have 30 or more life, it gets +5/+5 in flying, and it has a lifelink. So this is a good way to add life for our Adnaz, and it's also a great attacker for Tymna. If you're able to land this turn 1, and you're able to follow up with Tymna on turn 2, it's going to be a lot of life that's going to help you really push for that Adnaz win very fast. Syrian Spirit Guide, you guys know. Tataru is going to create us some mana. Voice of Victory, silence our opponents. So that's kind of the generic package that we have for our creatures. All of them, as you can see, do their own unique piece that, in my opinion, makes sense for the commanders. We'll go to the sorceries real fast. So we have a different assortment of tutors, and fast mana. Nothing really crazy here that is worth mentioning much of. Savine's Reclamation gets us back a permanent with mana value 3 or less. Most of our creatures and important pieces are 3 or less, so this just becomes pay 3 mana, get something back, which is very strong. We do play Tainted Pact, and we don't have any double-named lands, so being able to Praetor's Grasp Bathasa can get us a win as well, which is an important option just to have. Scheming Symmetry is going to let me and someone else, you could choose 2 people, we're not doing that in this deck because we're not playing Opposition Agent. But basically what this is going to do is allow us to tutor a card to the top of our library, go to combat, hit somebody, draw that card, go for a win. And yeah, Molten Duplication combos with Dualcaster Mage. Other than that, pretty sure all of these are pretty obvious. There's nothing you guys really need me to explain here. We'll go to the instances. This is going to be a little bit of an interesting one, but I'll explain all the cards as well as I can. Adnaz, everybody knows what Adnaz does at this point. It wins games. And this deck is very good at converting those Adnazes into wins. Being able to use the rituals to create more black mana, to be able to play out a couple rocks, to be able to set up for an Underworld Breach win is very easy. Cabal Ritual, Calling the Weak, and Dark Ritual, just 3 ways to create black mana. Deflecting Swat, like I said, and Flare of Duplication. We have Rog. Rog goes down early. Being able to have 2 pieces like this really early on is incredibly powerful. Enlightened Tutor usually goes and gets us Lion's Eye Diamond for the piece or Underworld Breach, depending on what side of the combo we're going for. Path to Exile is a removal piece. I always say this wrong. Patrician Scorn, I think is what it's called. This is kind of my like hot tech piece for the deck. But it's a 4 mana instant, which sounds horrible. But if you played another white spell this turn, it's free and says destroy all enchantments. So the thing is, right now, Rhystic Study is incredibly powerful in this meta. Being able to land a Rhystic Study and draw cards can lead to easy wins. And when you're trying to push with Adnaz, the last thing you want is people to have draw engines up, because you're going to feed them multiple cards. And if you're not able to land and sneak in a silence effect early on, that stack battle is going to be something that you're most likely going to lose. So being able to play a turn 2 Tymna or something like that, or even if you're 4th seat and you play an Esper Sentinel, you can play an Esper Sentinel and then follow up with this, because it'll cost 0 mana. Your opponents will not expect it. They will try to fight over it. But a free way to be able to blow up everyone's studies, Smothering Tides, and other things is worth it, in my opinion. This is a card that's gone in and out, but it's a card that I think should be played more. Pyro, red, everybody knows. Silence, we know. Soul Patrician, or Partition. The big thing is this deck needs to be able to push for the win. So you need a couple pieces of removal to be able to hit those pieces. Which we have an enchantment that can, and Soul Partition, which is basically just if somebody plays a stacks piece that I can't get around or that I need gone, like an Opposition Agent, this allows me the chance to be able to remove them. Chain of Pact, like we said, it's mostly there for, well, it's also there for the Praetor's Grasp, but it's mostly there to be able to basically quote-unquote tutor the card that we need into our hand. Spalt's Trickery is a counter spell. Not sold on how great it is in the deck. I'm still kind of seeing if it's even necessary, but more counter magic's more counter magic. Vamp Tutor, pretty obvious. In the artifact package, most of this is mana, as you can see. So I will not be talking about any of the mana, other than the fact that I will mention that Paradise Mantle and Springleaf Drum are very good with Rog, and so is Mox Amber. These are all things that can easily be enabled by Rog, which are going to give you extra mana. But to hit up the pieces outside of that matter, we have Grinding Station, which with Underworld Breach can kind of, combo off to mill your library and then win after that, which is very nice. Always remember that this triggers itself when it enters. So if you want to have it enter, sacrifice a mana vault that you're not using, then it will untap itself afterwards. So remember that if you're ever in a tight situation with Underworld Breach where you need that many cards. Lion's Eye Diamond, combos with Auriok Salvagers. That's the way that I win probably 85% of the games with this deck, is landing Underworld Breach, milling myself out, playing Auriok Salvagers, playing Lion's Eye Diamond, presenting the loop. We have a Vexing Bauble to help protect us. We have a Wish Claw to be able to tutor. But the important card I'm going to talk about right now is Pyre of Heroes. So it's 2 colorless artifact. You pay 2 colorless, tap it, sack a creature, and you search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrifice creature's type, and the converted mana cost equal to 1+ that creature's type. So one of the important things we could do is turn Tymna into Auriok Salvagers. So after we've already set ourselves up and done our thing, being able to turn this into the combo piece that wins us the game, obviously incredibly powerful. But we also have Esper Sentinel sitting around, and we have Serra Ascendant, and we have DRC, which just happen to be 1-drop humans, which can be sacrificed and searched for a Grand Abolisher. So being able to sacrifice DRC to immediately put down Grand Abolisher, it's just the stacks piece you need. And it gets Arbog's Mirror, which is a human. So being able to convert these little creatures into other creatures can be very important for us winning the game, and obviously kind of uninteractable. So yeah, I just want to point that out to everybody because I thought that was a pretty cool card. In the enchantment package, pretty straightforward too. We have Static Prison and Touch the Spirit Realm, which are removal. Underworld Breach, which is obviously very, very good for this deck. It's the way that we mill ourselves all the way out and set ourselves up for wins. Necropotence. I've had this in and out of the list. I'm testing it back in. I do think that Necropotence is worse in decks where you don't have blue because there's no instant speed wins in this deck. But I'm currently testing it out because I do believe that just being able to pay an amount of life and set yourself up next turn, I mean, it's good enough to win games. So I'm still testing this out. Guild Artisan, 1 in a red, commander creatures you control or you own have. Whenever this creature attacks, if no player has more life than that player, create 2 treasures. So being able to get this down turn 2 after having Malcolm down turn 1 means you could swing at someone and create 2 treasures, which is very good for the fast game plan. So that's pretty much it with the main part of the cards. In terms of lands, there's really nothing interesting in here. I'll just kind of highlight the ones that maybe are. Spire of Industry, taps for any color as long as you have an artifact. Very easy in this deck, we usually do. Phyrexian Tower, sack creature, create 2 black, can help us with the ramp. So can Ancient Tomb and the City of Traders to help us go a little bit faster. Gemstone Mine enters with 3 counters on it. When the 3rd counter's gone, you have to sacrifice it. It's not often that you end up with this on turn 1. Even if you do, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. But it's a very nice card to be able to help us mana fix, because sometimes those ad nauseam turns can be a little bit tricky depending on how or when you do it. Cavernous Souls can make our humans uncounterable, so we can get an uncounterable way to get silence effect down. And I like to play the Surveils in every deck. There's a lot of times where, wow, I didn't expect that. Okay, hopefully that doesn't happen again, because that would really suck. Anyway, Rapacious Theater is a Surveil in. I like to play him in every deck. There's a lot of times that you just have the free time in this deck. Like maybe there's no reason for you to push on turn 1, so you can go get this land, Surveil to set yourself up. With the colors being the colors that they are, I believe that getting every advantage that we can helps us out a ton. So that's pretty much the majority of this deck. I pretty much went over everything that I can think of. Like I said, the main win cons being Auriok Salvagers with Lion's Eye Diamond with like Arbog's Mirror to win the game. That's how I win 90% of my games, pretty much. But we'll play test a couple hands. I won't go into a huge amount of depth about these, but I will try to point out some hands and kind of show you guys how I would play them. So to me, this is a pretty good hand. I would keep this. I have a decent amount of lands. I have the ability to play Ancient Tomb turn 1 into Felwar Stone into a Blood Pet and have a Rog out, which would be this. Obviously, tap it, play this, tap this. So now we're sitting on a pretty interesting and decent board. Go to turn 2. We have the ability to play Tymna now. I won't tap them. I don't know why that's not working. We'd be able to tap these 3 down, play Tymna, connect with some people, get some treasures, set ourselves up for turn 3. We would be able to go to turn 3 now, where we have a Scheming Symmetry and we can push with a Naws. Probably would be the most likely thing that I would do, depending on blockers and stuff like that, obviously. But if you're able to connect with these 2, you're then able to put Adnaz on top, be able to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sacrifice and play an Adnaz. Usually I like to push on other people's turns. You could push on yours. I guess the Adnaz plan is a little bit worse since we did get Ancient Tomb and Mana Confluence as our first 2 down. But I'm just trying to quickly spitball the idea out to you guys and kind of just show you. So this is an interesting hand. It is a little fast looking, but a little slow looking. This is kind of why I like Rapacious Theater, though, because this does give us the option, if we were to draw for turn, we can play a Rapacious Theater, look at our top card, we see it's a Vexing Bauble. Vexing Bauble is not what you would want if that's what you're going for, so you could surveil it. You'd then be able to go to your next turn. Now we have an Arcane Signet. We don't have enough to be able to push for turn 2 win. I don't know why I leave those up there. But we are able to go search, play an Arcane Signet and pass, and then we're able to set up for turn 3 pushing depending on how our game state looks and our opponents. Or we can set up for end of turn 3 push on turn 4. It's not bad. This hand is also pretty decent, depends on turn order. Being able to play an Arid Mesa, a Lotus Petal, and then hold up this interaction is pretty interesting. We can actually crack this, go get another land, exile this for a red, and then we'd be able to play an Archivist on top of people, which can help us draw early cards. And as you see, we already had these, so we're kind of set up. Once we draw the Dark Ritual, I mean, we're really... Oh, I guess these aren't the cards that you would draw. But, because we didn't crack our land to represent it. But getting a couple draws off of this Archivist definitely puts you in a strong place. People are not going to not crack their lands just because an Archivist is out. So I think this is a pretty safe, decent hand. This is also a pretty interesting hand. A lot of times it seems like you can be short on mana, but still realize that the hand is pretty good. So we would draw, you can play a Rog, play a land, play a Mox Amber, tap both to play a Tataru Taru, draw a card, and we'd be able to create a tap treasure. So we would have at least one tapped treasure. And then we'd be able to go to our turn 2. Admittedly, we didn't hit the land, but we have a decent amount of mana production, and we have a gamble to be able to set up for future turns. Plus, Auriok Salvagers is already in our hand. So if we do happen to get a silence effect and protect us, we have that way. We also have Archivist, so. But yeah, that's the main portion of the deck. There are other lists out there, like I said, that use Rog as more of just like Tymna's just there as colors. It's kind of like an emergency. There's some people that lean heavily into the Tymna plan. As you can probably tell from mine kind of does a little bit of both. It definitely benefits from having Rog and the little creatures that I can sacrifice to present fast wins. But it also can easily lean into the Tymna plan, where I draw a couple cards and now all of a sudden I'm able to land a Protected Grand Abolisher, Adnaz, and Storm off and win. So that's it for this deck tech, guys. I'm gonna keep doing a couple more of these. I might do some that aren't decks that I have built in paper. The last ones were, and the next one probably will be too. But I might go through and just knock out some of my actual deck lists. I have a ton of cEDH deck lists saved. So I might try to highlight just a couple of them and maybe try to give some guys or some people, give you guys some ideas. But that's all for this video, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good day.